right, DJ LeRoy.
NightWatchman. How have you been, my man?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. I mean, a lot has happened. Literally, we are getting close to what Thanksgiving. You know,
Yep.
and so it's all about family and friends.
Right. And you
You
know what
know,
I'm thankful for?
what are you thankful for?
I'm thankful for artists. You
Oh,
know, they
okay,
they
okay.
are, our warriors of culture that through thick and thin always have another message for us to hear.
I understand that sometimes they are also a reflection of the times.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, you know what? Why don't we have a show about that? Let's get that popping.
Let's
What do you
do
say?
it. Let's do it.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
You know what? Actually, I'm going to say that this particular artist, she is literally the reason why we're having this show. She just
Really?
she planted a little insight into my ear, and the next
Uh-huh.
thing you know, we have to have her on. And that, of course,
Okay.
is the artist known as Miss Aleathia Brown. Bring her up. Hey, Alethia.
Welcome.
Hey, grand risings on whatever part of the seaboard you are.
Right.
ah,
Okay. Well spoken.
and you know what? This next artist, I've known her for quite some time, but also turns out that she and her husband are my neighbors. Right on,
All right.
can
Okay.
only be the one, the only, Miss Tomo Miro.
All right.
Mori.
Mori.
Maury.
Did I say Mori?
Maury.
Damn, I'm losing it myself here. God. Uh,
Hi.
Hey, how you
Thank,
doing?
good.
Beautiful,
Good. Thank you for
beautiful.
having me.
No, thank you for sure. And I want to thank everybody because you know what? We did a pivot. We did a pivot, Night Watchman. Why? Because of this next artist we're about to bring up here, Miss Omo Misha. Bring her up. Hey,
Welcome. Welcome.
how
Hey,
you doing? All
good.
right.
Thank you for having me and pivoting.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Well,
well, well, certainly. You know what? I want to actually, I guess, start out because I need to know everyone's journey. Now, I mentioned that art is sometimes a reflection, no doubt, of the times, and certainly the times that we're in. We can say COVID, but let's say, Alethia, please do tell your journey and how you got to this point.
As far as being an artist, this has
Yes.
been a lifetime journey. I came on this planet as an artist. It was no question. So I actually proclaimed that at 3. And even when people would ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? I would say, I am an artist. Like, no,
Mm.
not be.
wow.
I came here. They ported me here with the assignment. Yeah.
Nice,
So
nice.
so
Hmm.
there's being an artist and then there's being a career artist. So the career
Ah,
artist started 1989 after I had a bout with some teachers in SVA 2 years before telling me that I wouldn't amount to much of anything. And I said, "Oh, really? Let me
mm,
launch Alethia's original artworks in response to that." And so I have been in the professional seat as a provocative and positive response to the negative energy that I received with the racism and all the other isms that took place in my latter days of being in college. And it's interesting how the journey has spanned wings on so many levels because visually and then performing artist. So of late I've been also shifting and pivoting and doing some storytelling to music and poetically doing that. So that those are parts that always existed, but I never publicly displayed them. So when I say I'm an artist, I'm not just talking on the canvas. It's so much more than that. And that's why I never call myself a painter because I never wanted to be boxed in to
mhm.
that I had one identity because art is not just a specialized thing that you do just at the feet. So I wanted people to understand I'm an artist, period.
Hmm.
That title kind of holds a whole realm of things creatively, engineering and
Hmm.
telling a story and positioning and provoking thought. So now I'm an
Beautiful.
artist.
Thank you. Thank you. Tomo, tell us about your journey. Now, back in Japan, were you an artist or did you?
Yes, I wasn't always an artist.
Hmm.
I actually started painting oil in third grade. So very,
Hmm.
very long time I was in after school painting school. But so I kind of knew I would do something with visual.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much only thing I was good at too. At least I thought, though, maybe I didn't know. But I went to specialize fine art and music high school in Japan,
Uh-huh.
in Tokyo. It's a public school, but it's kind of like the New York City have school like that too.
Mm-hmm.
Very small school, but I had a hard time. I didn't know how to express it and speak about it, but there's a
Mm-hmm.
colonial sexism in Japan, and in
Mm-hmm.
school, family work, and then I just always felt something uncomfortable about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became an exchange student for 1 year and study English in California, countryside of California.
Uh-huh.
And then so I was able to speak a little bit of English at the age of 17. So I
Mm.
applied for school in Atlanta to
Uh-huh.
study contemporary art. So and then I um, changed my major to video production because I really needed to work, like have a job, because my father fell ill.
Mm-hmm.
And so I worked for, after graduation, I worked for news media for 11 years.
Wow.
And art was, to me, was like a love I lost. It's kind of like ex-boyfriend that I love so much.
Mm-hmm.
Like I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to know what's happening in our world for
Right.
a long time. I was painting, but I just never wanted to get involved in the whole art market for a
Mm-hmm.
very long time. And then finally, there was just time came that I needed to rethink about my life and what I really wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
Around Yeah, around 2010, and that's
Mm-hmm.
when I just changed a lot of things. I left the corporate job to give myself 18 months to see how much I can do in art.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing happens, then I was going to go back to my um, design job.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then things started to happen in 18 months, so I just decided to stay.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Good. As I say, better late than never, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
So, Misha, now we are here, right here in New York City. You, on the other hand, we are talking to you in Detroit.
Yes.
Okay, okay. So, give us your journey, and also what has brought you to Detroit.
Well, I am a native of Detroit. I've
Mm-hmm.
spent really my entire adult life in New York, in Brooklyn, and then primarily in Harlem. So Harlem is as much home for me as Detroit. I grew up there as an adult. So as much as I bring Detroit to Harlem, I bring a lot of Harlem back here to Detroit, with me to Detroit. So right now I'm experiencing a dual residency and working in the arts here in Detroit and in Harlem, and trying to also connect those two worlds.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but as far as my journey as an artist, like many artists, I've always known I was an artist. I've always drawn, painted, studied in high school,
Mm-hmm.
studied at College for Creative Studies here in Detroit. Then moved to New York and assumed a career creating jewelry.
Mm.
So I did that for many years and really returned to the art world. I would say in the mid 2000s
Okay.
as an artist, and then I was able to curate my first exhibition with Art Harlem, with
Mm-hmm.
the Harlem Open Artist Studio Tour, and that kind of took my practice in a different direction in terms of curating and creating arts events and experiences.
Mm-hmm.
and I also worked in arts administration, as you know, at the Leroy Neiman Art Center and the Children's
Mm-hmm.
Art Carnival. So it's just really been a full circle encompassing art making, curating, and arts administration and education. And
Yeah,
yeah, here I am. As you know, I have a gallery, or maybe you don't know.
I
I
don't
have
know.
a gallery here in Detroit.
Ah,
Yeah, and
oh,
yeah.
very nice. Okay, so
Now, I
uh,
also have to compliment you. I we have a mutual friend, photographer Milton Washington, who
Oh,
came out to Detroit and did a series of photographs in which you were the subject, and so you
yes.
became the actual art in it. And those photos, by the way, are just stunning. They're
Oh,
really
thank you
magnificent.
so much. Thank
Yes,
you so
yes.
much. Yeah,
oh,
that was a
okay.
really
Mhm,
exciting
mhm,
project. I was honored to be a part of it and to be able to host him here in
mhm,
Detroit.
mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I have to ask because knowing you're there in Detroit and we're here in New York. Comparisons, the art scene in other places. What's it like, Alethia, in New York, is in compared to other cities and states?
Well, it's interesting because in New York, it's almost in every corner there's something art creative happening, and if you are in the art industry, you kind of have already got to tap into that. When it comes down to other cities or other places that I've been to, I was part of the Art Basel in 2018, and that art week had a whole different vibe in Miami than the New
Mm-hmm.
York flow when we have our art week or our culture months and things like that happening, because there was a lot of people from other places coming there, bringing and building the art, whereas this is the foundation for a lot of it already happening. So I just found that people were doing it for different purposes, so the energy coming off of that even changes, and even the subject matter when you see where it's coming from and what's provoking it, like what's happening with George Floyd, and you're seeing now all of these statues and all of these paintings, and so that's speaking to the time, and it's kind of putting an indelible ink on what's going on. And so I think that for me was one of the things. But one of the things that really stood out for me too, more so, I had gone and done a show some years ago in Sweden, and I was the only artist that not only was not multilingual, but I couldn't keep up with all of the other conversations they were having internationally. So I had a paint marker in my pocket, and I started drawing on one of the crystal glasses that I was drinking water out of, and I passed it around the table, and we did such an amazing job on this that the owner of the restaurant built a cabinet, lit it, and had that stored in there. And everywhere we went for the whole time we were in Sweden, we got to get free meals at five-star restaurants for doing art. So art is
Wow.
definitely different in Europe than it is here, because other people would have been like, "Oh my God, what did she do to our dishes?"
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow,
Well,
that's great.
and Tomo, you mentioned that, of course, California. You mentioned, of course, Atlanta.
Mhm.
Tell us what the experience was like in some of the other cities and states.
As for like art and
Yeah.
business, I don't really know because I was high school
Ah,
student in California, and
gotcha.
I was in college in Atlanta, but I was
Mm,
shooting video. I was
mm,
painting a little bit, but
uh-huh.
yeah, but yeah, there's just a lot more here, and I think there's a little. It's a New York is a brand too. I do
Mm,
work with a gallery in Michigan and Colorado. Um,
mm-hmm,
Michigan gallery I did go visit, but there's a few gallery that I never even visited that they can sell my work, and
mm-hmm,
I do a lot online too, and
mm-hmm,
it's it's really kind of interesting without really being physically there,
mm-hmm,
or like people don't know me at all.
mm-hmm.
My work itself is talking to someone, and somebody like it enough to take it home, and or like or even like hang in their gallery. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, like where we are matters, but then maybe it doesn't matter in some cases, and it's kind of it's interesting.
Gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Uh, and certainly, Misha, uh,
Yes.
when we're talking about the, oh, I don't know, something's happening here. I'm just trying to get to, uh, with you, and let's say Detroit. Now, Detroit certainly is going through, I guess, gentrification or a rebuilding of their economic base. Has that prompted a lot of, let's say, creatives and artists to flock to that part of the state?
I think so. I think a lot of artists from all over the country and all over the world are seeing opportunity here. Just to be able to have space to create and, to be able
Mm-hmm.
to afford to have space to create. Now that's changing.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not as affordable as they once were.
Mm-hmm.
But in addition to that, there's always been a very vibrant, creative landscape here.
Okay.
Even just from growing up, there's always been a lot of creativity, whether it's visual art or music. So there's an energy that's always been here. So I think people are drawn to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things I guess have to ask because before we actually went on, I know there was a discussion, and help me out here, Night Watchman, that the discussion revolved around uh, Shishama, and Shishama, of course, being a co-locating workspace for artists. And I know Alethia, you did it. Tomo, you did it. Uh, uh, and Oma, you're familiar with it as well, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Now, is there enough co-locating workspace for artisans to work on their craft? Okay.
Absolutely
Not
not.
anymore. Not anymore.
That
Yeah.
hands down, that's the space is the final frontier.
Well,
Mhm.
there's a very kind of a negative cycle that involves artists and gentrification of areas. And we've seen it in New York. We saw it downtown. It started in the 70s, where as the area below Midtown was usually loft space, and artists basically created lofts from these industrial spaces and created these beautiful not only workspaces but living spaces. And then they finally got those to become legal living spaces, and then the real estate came in, then they condoed it, and it became too expensive for artists. A lot of artists pushed out to Williamsburg. Same thing
Yeah.
happened. And so
Mhm.
there's this cycle where artists will take their creativity and go into an area where it's not considered
Habitable.
habitable,
Right.
and they bring
Yeah.
in culture and
Yeah.
creativity and make it cool, make it interesting, make it habitable, create it, and then it becomes okay. So now they've created the opportunity, and then people move into the area, the real estate goes up. And I think this probably happens not just here in New York, but it happens everywhere. And so, how do we stop that cycle? How do we find artists and be able to nurture them when they create an area or space like that, so that they can continue to be sustainable in doing what they do?
One of the things that I think definitely has to change is artists need to be at the table when decisions are being made like that, from realtors and developers and art organizations and chambers of commerce. We are never at the table when those conversations are being had. So the decision for art and culture as the sidebar when we are the feature is so ironic.
Mm,
Like, I'll
wow.
give you an example. One year I was doing a presentation with NYCHA for a citywide art show, and we're in this beautiful space down on Chamber Street, and it's got the amazing view through the window, catered, jazz in the backdrop, and we're the featured artists who are supporting the community whose work we were giving them platforms for. And none of us had a paycheck for 3 months, but the caterer was paid, the venue was paid, the musicians were paid. And there's always this assumption that when the artists are donating their work in an auction or celebrating work on an easel of some sort, because we have the potential of a sale, that we don't need to get paid for all the time that we spent at that. So it's the same thing when it comes down to this real estate. We make the neighborhood sexy and beautify it, but then we are the sidebar that we can do away with you. But we're never at the table to tell them how important on a business level for tourism and the ecosystem for us to still be in that community. We make those trees clean, we make the air clean because we are conscious of that. We are also taking your garbage and turning it into art. So that's repurposing. So there's a whole lot of things that are taken for granted with who we are and how intelligent we are. We're not just playing with something, we're actually changing something.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I guess I'm hearing you. So, not being involved in the discussion, we should not embrace what we used to be thought of as sexy, Alethia. That was what, the starving artist, because you're a starving artist. Yeah,
No
I'm allergic
artist
to that
ever,
title.
no artist ever embraced that title.
No, I'm allergic. I just can't. I get a twitch. I get a twitch.
Gotcha, gotcha. So do tell that, Tomo. I saw you shaking your head too in terms of creative spaces for artists. You do not see that. That is definitely something that is needed. Artists need to be involved in the discussion with the developers before they embark on the project, so that you guys will not necessarily be displaced, or if some new space is being created, an artisan type space should also be part of that discussion. Take it.
Definitely. And also, like, I, walking around neighborhood, and then I see a lot of empty storefront, and I'm sure like a lot of buildings not really using the basement space. And then I always wonder if you could do something with those space, collaboratively speak to the landlord, speak to HDFC, board. But then it is, work, like I admire organization like a Shishama who does it. If I run that organization, I don't think I have time to be doing this,
Right.
very labor intensive artwork. But I also think about, like, so what's the priority? And I also see so many homeless people these days. And so is it studio space really priority for the, community, or we should find more housing space for affordable housing space for everybody? A lot to think about.
Gotcha, gotcha. Uh, I guess with Misha, now you've been on both sides, an artist and also an administrator, and trying to actually represent artists and also I guess find space for them to be creative. Tell us about your journey and what you've been doing on that front.
Yeah. Well, to Tomo's point, artists are many artists, most artists are focused on their practice, and that's what they need to. That's how they need to be to continue to produce the work that they do. So they do need other people, organizations to protect them, protect us, and support them. And in terms of being at the table when these decisions are being made with government, with city government, with developers and corporations, we don't always have the opportunity to be at the table. So we do need branches of city government, whether it's our cultural councils or our council persons, or organizations like Chishama. And even when Art and Flux was in operation, they provided a lot of opportunities for artists to exhibit at these empty storefronts throughout Harlem. So that created a lot of opportunity for artists as well. So we need organizations to advocate for artists. Not all artists, as much as we all should be able to advocate for ourselves, not all artists have the capacity to do that, because that's a full-time job. You know,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
that in
Yes.
itself is a full-time job, and that means you don't have a lot of time to create. So there is, all artists should make some kind of balance between their work and the business aspect of it. But for the most part, we need to connect with other people and organizations to help in that way. But in terms of I just try to do what I can in my little corner, wherever that corner is. If it's in Harlem, if it's in Detroit, whatever opportunities I can create for artists in that
Got,
where I'm
gotcha.
at, that's just what I try to do.
Okay.
So I
Night
try to
watch.
create. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you find the business part of the art world to be more challenging than creating the art?
It's a different language. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like switching out. If you're bilingual, you're still translating in your head one medium, and then there's this other thing coming out of your mouth that's informing your behavior. So what I'm saying about that is too, I had a friend of mine some years ago when he was making the transition from being a full-time artist, becoming a dad and a husband. He had to take on teaching work, and he was trying to figure out how in the midnight hour he can still produce his art and balance the family life. And I said, well, there'll have to be seasons where you are doing administrative things, you're doing creative things, you're doing all these things in a particular season so that you can fit it all in. Organizing yourself is really prime. When you're at a professional level, you can no longer afford to only focus on one thing because it will affect other things. So for me, as much as I would love to just get in that laboratory and paint my heart's desire, I still have to create an invoice, have some presence on social media, make a phone call, build something towards what's happening next month and the following season, because I don't have a 9 to 5. So my 5 to 9 is in 5 a.m. I'm gonna spend 4 hours on the computer doing the administrative stuff, and I got a desk full of papers around me to prove that. But there's the other part of you designating and being an insomniac, the other part of your time that you can't put a clock on to create. So it's about balance. And as a professional artist, you don't have a choice, because that's how you eat if you don't want to be on the 9 to 5.
So one of the bigger developments in the art space has been in the digital world, and there's something called NFTs that a lot of artists are really, really excited about. So, have any of you all looked into NFTs, and what are your thoughts on the NFT space?
I'm learning.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I got
I'm
training
I
in
don't
it.
I don't know a whole lot about it either.
yeah, I'm excited about it. I'm learning about it. I've actually spoken to a couple people who uh, teach or do workshops on it. So we're looking at doing some workshops here in Detroit, and maybe that's something we can talk about coordinating in
Hmm.
Harlem as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I think one of the benefits of NFTs, and it came out of the whole crypto space, is that it is a way for you to, I guess, digitally sell your artwork and have it happen that. So one of the things that the problem with kind of the traditional gallery space, a gallery host an artist. They sell the artist work. The gallery gets a cut. The artist gets a cut, and then the work belongs to whoever bought it. And then when it appreciates in value, they can sell it for more and more and more, and the artist doesn't get anything back. With NFTs, you can create something where every time the art is resold, the artist still gets a piece of that income. So that, and being able to authenticate, there are just a lot of opportunities where it puts the power back in the hands of the artist, as opposed to, you know, the gallery owner. Or I think artists have traditionally always had to rely on some sort of other structure, you know, going back to the Medicis, who were sponsors. And now you know, you have this you know, gallery ecosystem where the artists, you know, the gallery owner's job is to basically cultivate buyers slash investors in the artist's artwork. But again, often, you know, the artist does not have as much say in it as the gallery owner does. And if you have a good gallery owner, it's great. But if you have one who's just about, you know, the money, sometimes the artist becomes more of a commodity. And so I think that the digital space now creates another opportunity for people to participate in the ecosystem of their own art, and not have somebody else control it. So,
Well, legally, technically, artists, whether it's you or your estate, technically when you sell a piece of art to someone, you legally are entitled to 15% if they resell it to someone else beyond them. And
mhm,
most people don't put that in writing when they're doing their invoices or sales. And again, that comes down to the education and how much you know about your industry,
mhm,
because it's not legal for you. Even if I gifted you a painting, if you sold it, technically I could sue you for 15% of that sale you made. And if
mhm,
my estate was on top of it, they could also. But most times you want the sales, so you don't want to scare people off with those legalities. And if you don't educate them on how that's a benefit, because then it also in the ecosystem keeps you understanding who your work is moving to and from. That's the
mhm,
other benefit of knowing who's on that invoice, because you now can track how the work is increasing in value and moving to different hands over
mhm,
time. So this is why we're always having to educate ourselves. To your point about NFT, I actually just had a conversation with a tech person to see if we can do a meeting at one of the galleries in Harlem and have artists come in to be educated on what NFTs really is. Because that's really the only barrier, is when you don't understand how something operates, you shy away from it because it seems too daunting to add another layer onto your head. Already we're having to balance creating and balance the professional part and balance a home life and all of this, and now here we got this other thing that comes in that has a life of its own. So we need to be educated and find out the simplest way to get beginning to get involved in it. And when you have to have somebody else heady wise getting involved in it for you, then you're still getting back to the curators, who you're at the helm of them being able to be fair or what have you.
being an artist ain't easy.
Nope. Did you get the memo?
But the other thing that I've noticed about artists is that it's a calling. And it's like something you have to do every day. It's like eating, breathing, you know, that urge to have to create on a regular basis, and I guess the life energy that you get from actually creating the art and sharing the art. So maybe you guys can speak a little bit to that.
I think we really saw, I think people really gleaned the importance of art during the pandemic and since. I think when the shutdown first happened, I really thought, oh, it's a wrap for us. You know, the artists, the art industry, it's over for us. But the response was quite the opposite. You know, people were able to channel all of that, all of what we were all experiencing into creativity, into creating, and those who were not artists and creators really found a benefit in connecting with art and with artists. So, and it's interesting that this whole NFT thing, you know, for lack of anything better to call it, because I'm still trying to understand it. I don't know what it is. Kind of came about at that same time. So I believe artists are rediscovering their own worth, and collectors, art lovers, art enthusiasts are coming into a greater understanding of the importance of art in our lives. And I don't know if I answered a question.
Yeah, you did absolutely.
So yeah.
During the pandemic, I did a one project. I participated in a project called Art on Avenue. I don't know if you heard of it. It happened in upper upper west side and also downtown. It's like utilizing the empty storefront and displaying the artist work because a lot of retail business shut down. That was a great project. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it first, but then um, when I heard the one um, comment from audience, old lady who lives in a neighborhood didn't get to go anywhere, um, not seeing anyone, and then she was just so happy to see our work. Um, that really kind of confirmed that you know art what we're doing is important. Also, yeah, and then I think a lot of things that happen in online space. I don't know NFT too well, but I do a lot digitally and internet. I think the fact that so many, most of like artist talks and um discussions and everything was happening online, and I was finally able to join so many events because before, as a mother of a young child, I couldn't go most of it. All these things I just kind of sign up to say I go, but by the time 6 o'clock hits and my energy is done because I was with my toddler, or she's now 5 years old, but before I couldn't go anywhere. But I was able to join so many groups and so many discussions, and so there's just a lot of findings lately, last 2 years that can benefit my life and my artist life, and maybe for a lot of people who doesn't have a whole lot of access.
So where do you guys find the inspiration these days?
That never changed. I
Yeah.
mean, we're always, as an artist, you're always in isolation creating. So this is actually prime for all of us who had to be hermits anyway. I get to have more access to my creative energy because I'm not running the marathon of a day physically. My marathon might be online, but I'm steps away from going right back to where I left off and framing the screen so that you don't see the madness and I could get right back into whatever I'm doing. So, not having to travel, not having to deal with the stress of having to be on time to someplace physically has given me a different branch on the tree, but it also allows me to be in touch with people in a wider region than I ever was because I'm global all the time, whereas before it was a conscious effort to be global and in whether it be physically or using the internet. Now there's so many common folks and creative folks that are using this device that is giving me access to more platforms at a shorter reach. So I know within the first 10 days of this pandemic, I went on and took a class with Zoom because I was like, oh no, they will not take me out by not knowing something. So I had to learn how to use this platform so that I could use the platform. And so for me, the pandemic has been tremendous in making me pivot. And as an artist, you're always doing that anyway. What part of our lives has not always been a challenge, has not always been some new change or embracing change? So all of these dynamics, if anything, it's honed in on my focus in a more intense way than ever. So I'm loving that.
You are on mute. Not hearing you.
Huh?
DJ LeRoy.
DJ LeRoy,
Are they?
we don't hear you.
No.
He's having technical difficulties.
Okay. Uh
If he could write it in the chat, he could tell you what's happening. We're talking about technology, right?
Yeah, that's it. Well, that's one nice thing about, it's
Yeah.
live,
So while he figures that out,
Yeah.
in your intro, which was really nice, Night Watchman, about artists, what you said about artists, and artists are really keepers of the culture. And through our art, we're drawing from current events, we're drawing from um, history, personal experiences. Um, we're marking the time. We're marking moments in time through our art. One of the programs that I teach for, we with Symphony Space. I've taught with Symphony Space since since 2003, and we go into different schools and we teach about different cultures, by looking at their art. And you really realize the importance of art over time, because if you go back into ancient history where there's nothing written left behind. All that we know about these cultures, we know from looking at their art. So the art that we're creating today, the art that and legacy that we're leaving behind, is going to tell a story about our times, what was happening, what we were feeling, how we looked, things we did, and are really going to help inform people currently, and really give people in the future a sense of who we are. So that's, to me, the importance of art. One of the reasons. I mean, just also it just people really connect with art. And going back to the pandemic, I think people realize how much joy and just comfort and insight that they get from art. And even some people who didn't have an appreciation for art before gained an appreciation of it. From being at home. You're stuck at home, you're looking at the four walls, and you're looking for inspiration in really the darkest times in most of our lives. And a lot of people found that in art. So yeah, we are a critical part of of life and existence.
But I gotta say, one of the things that I'm looking for or forward to, and even in myself, when you talk about almost the darkest times, so sometimes art is not about pretty. It's not about
Mhm,
this beautifying thing. It's about telling truth.
mhm,
So I'm looking for the truth sayers about this controversy. One of these moderators, I was listening to a talk about how she was having these different panel discussions online at NJPAC, and so she mentioned one of the topics was on colorism. And of course, I mentioned about George Floyd and police brutality. These are the things that you're seeing show up in the art, but
mhm,
the vaccination versus non-vaccination,
mhm.
I want to see what's going to start coming out of that, because
Mhm.
what I feel like right now is, although art is about speaking and provoking, I feel like as an artist, and I'm going to just be 110% right now, I'm really disturbed at how much silence is going on about truth, and we're not able to really access our voice about how we feel about this mandate, the whole human right violation of there is an alternative. Because the thing that people I feel is not speaking about is you are being lumped into a category vaccinated, non-vaccinated. What about people who have been on a holistic preventative chain and they're not train wrecks? They are healthy. They are speaking to what it is. And how does that show up in the art realm? That there are people who are responsible and making different choices. And how is that going to show up in the art that we're not having a voice right now? Everything is being silenced. And if you say anything to the left about it, you get swooped down on. And I looked at even one of these rap artists who made a comment, and how even the White House wrote to her and just shut her down. It's just not a time where your truth is being even allow breathing space. So if you're not doing a pretty picture and you're not doing something non-political and non-religious and non, your voice is being zipped. And
So
that's
you
what
saying
disturbs
there are
me.
artists creating that work and that work
I'm
is not
looking for
being
it. I'm
shown,
looking for it. I
or
don't
you
know
just
that it
haven't?
is. I haven't
Mhm.
seen it, because when you watch, and we are all watching because that's all we have time to do right now. We're watching both online and on the television or whatever medium that you're having a portal to the world. You're watching how folks who make the daring step to say anything get swooped down on. And I heard a music artist say the other day, if you're non-vaccinated, you're the enemy. And
Mhm.
again, that's a provocative statement to just blanket. And how does it show up in art when you want people to really speak truth? How
Mhm.
do we speak the truth about the time that we're living in? It's like the Hatfields and the McCoys. You can't talk about this, because if
Mhm.
you say anything,
But
Right.
that goes back to the core of the artist, because the artist is what's not been accounted for, because artists are master communicators. Artists
Night
are
Watchman. I'm sorry. Do you see the chat?
the
Yeah,
chat. Let me
heart is
see.
trying to come back.
Okay. All right. So, but he's I think he's having some connection issues, because right now he's not even connected, but he's coming back. So
Okay.
I'll bring
Is
him
he?
back
Yeah.
as soon as as soon as I can.
But yeah.
So yeah, so as artists being master communicators and master truth tellers, it is kind of a responsibility of the artist to find their truth and tell it regardless of what's going on in the media, because the media is another form of communication, but it's not necessarily art. And a lot of times it is influence, it is controlled, and so that truth does not always get delivered, you know. We're in a world where, we used to be that everybody saw Walter Cronkite on Channel 2 and believed him because he had an air of believability about him. Now we're in 2021 going into 2022, and we know for sure that there are gaps between what is provided on a mainstream basis and sometimes what the full truth is, or even any portion of the truth. So an artist's job is to see the truth as they see it and tell it and put it out there regardless. But the fact that you are affected by it, Alethea, is that's your art spider sense is saying this is something that you need to talk about or address. This
And
something.
also, maybe something. There may be artists out there addressing it in their art. I will admit I haven't been looking for it.
Mhm.
But you can start that. If it's something that if this is a message that resonates with you, I mean, this is what we do as artists. We speak and create on those things that resonate strongly with us to try
it's
to.
starting.
Um,
I'm there because I'm beginning my artist residency at home the end of this month. So that is one of the things I am
mhm.
touching on,
Yeah.
because I'm saying this for a reason.
Mm.
Tomo, you had something you wanted to
Yeah,
say?
yeah, my work is I've been really focusing on the mental health issue um out there, and maybe even my own. I think a lot people needs healing, so that's what I work on, which is not a really directly political. I have a lot to say politically, and I say it. I say it in the places that I could say it, but I kind of don't want to use to take that into my art. That's my choice, um, and I don't feel like I want to explain my narrative of political view in my work. My work, I want it to exist after all that. Like, each one of us have challenge, and we fought the challenge and then came home, and then, it's time to heal so you can be better next day, kind of like. So it's a little different approach, but diversity speaking, I think any kind of art should be okay. I think that's one approach, and then that's what I'm doing these days, at
Oh,
least. Like, I
I'm not suggesting not to have your approach. I'm just even the openness of speaking your truth. Mental health has definitely been on the banner waving even before the pandemic. So this just exasperated it, and it is a time to heal. But in order to heal, you can't be bombarded with all of these other things without being able to address them. And that's the elephant in the room. How can you heal if you're inundated? And it's just the force is not with you, it's against you.
I'm kind of like doing this, thinking like I don't want to change people's life, or well, I definitely get healing effect by actually working on my piece. And I
Mhm.
also these like a rope series, like when I weave so many of this at night, and this is really really meditating. But other than that, I don't know. I feel like a little too arrogant to say I want to change, heal you. Like, I don't want to be that spiritual, some kind of cultish or something. But um, there's a moment of microaggression, and then maybe like there's a moment of micro healing. Like you just pass by something, seeing something. Wow, this is,
It's a
you
sympathetic
know,
vibration. Like
exactly.
you
And then,
put you're a master of expression. If you're an artist, you're a master of expression.
mhm,
But that expression has a vibration that when somebody um, connects with your art, however they observe it, however they experience it, they get that vibration of the emotion or the content that you wanted to communicate. So if you are healed by expressing it, you also create a space that if somebody is observing or experiencing your art, that they
mhm,
receive some of that healing as well. And that's why I feel like artists are master communicators, because
mhm,
they can communicate not just words, ideas, but also emotions, and they could do it in such a compact form. So what might take somebody an hour and a half to talk about, you can see in a moment, or hear in a moment, or feel in a moment from a piece of art.
mhm.
Well, I'm
I
not.
sorry.
Mhm.
Just want to add one more thing, like to that. So I was experiencing a lot of harassment regarding to um anti-Asian violence and harassment. Mostly verbally, by what I was chased by two men one time, and it was just happening a lot. And my daughter was seeing it half of the time, um and then but there was a lot of people who tried to help me too. There was when I was taking my daughter to preschool, there was a father who would walk with me, and that, not just like physically I felt safe, like that is healing. That his compassion was really making me feel okay mentally. So that I want to do in an art.
Mhm.
Yeah, just that it may be little thing. He was going the same direction anyways, but just like, Tomo, you want to walk with me? Same direction. That little things. It's so I don't want to do anything big, but just little things that makes people feel like, okay, yeah.
I'm
Absolutely.
not
So,
suggesting that people do something so radical, or I'm not giving a cookie cutter for this, because each of us have a voice, and how we express our voice is our own unique way. My mechanism is different than yours, and so on. I just said on a whole, I'm not seeing it, and how it shows up is how it authentically shows up and can and should. I may not go in the direction of some hardcore person, but that is not even showing up is what I'm talking about.
hello, everyone. I think I may have
Oh,
lost you for a little
Welcome
bit.
back.
Thank you.
Welcome back.
For those of you who have seen Get Out, I was definitely in the sunken place. So I have
Well,
returned. So
well, I'm glad you not only got out, but you didn't have to kill anybody on the way out.
I know.
so I do thank you, NightWatchman, and your technical expertise in terms of, as I say, making it all work. But definitely, this for me, this has just really been a special discussion to hear from all of you, especially knowing that there has been an ability to pivot during this unprecedented time. And Misha, I cannot believe that you were just like signing the check that it's all over for artists.
what?
You said it whatever when it first happened or whatever.
Oh, I mean,
this
I thought for a minute. Don't act like you didn't think it was everything was all over for everybody.
well
At least
okay.
for a hot minute.
For
Come
a
on.
hot minute, yes, there was a little thought, because remember, we had never ever seen anything like this.
Right.
For sure. I have let's say a little question here. So Community Board 10, of which Alethia and I participated on a discussion with their Arts and Culture Committee. Before there was a discussion of this particular organization out of Brooklyn coming to Mart 125, Spaceworks. That, however, did not go over well with Community Board 9, because remember, A, that was the first time the Community Board was hearing about it, and B, it's an organization not from the community, not from Harlem. Now, is that important that a arts advocacy group needs to be from the community?
No, I mean,
No.
unless whatever they're doing is competing with or knocking out somebody in the community who wants to do it. But if they're bringing in services that are needed and nobody in the community is stepping up to do that, we need that. I know Spaceworks, and I've seen what they did in Brooklyn. It's remarkable, and it would be awesome to have something like that in Harlem, especially with Chishama gone, and Chishama needs to come back.
Yeah.
Chishama, we need you.
So
Think about it.
we've
It's
got
happening now. Look at Uptown Night Market. The Marco was from the Bronx, and now he brought that into Harlem and collaborated with the Harlem businesses. So it still
Sure.
got its Harlem flavor. You can see
Yeah.
how collaborations could benefit. We weren't doing anything like what he's doing underneath that highway
You're
until
right.
he brought it there. And nobody's having any qualm about that. And his whole thing was doing that in the Bronx, and he just brought it down here. So stop with the egos, people. Why?
I'm surprised. I'm honestly, I didn't know that was going on, and I'm surprised that that's an issue, because New York is a city of transplants, and we're all transplanting ourselves from one borough to the next. You know, I came to Harlem from Brooklyn, and we're all moving around and sharing our creativity and talents and services amongst all the boroughs. So this is not like a group coming from another country. They're coming from another part of the city, the same city that we live in.
But
Yeah.
fear will paralyze you. Fear will paralyze you. And so a lot of times people are afraid that someone else is going to come to their neighborhood and do it better than they were. And it makes you start having to look at what you weren't doing or weren't able to do in a defensive way instead of in a
Mhm.
positive way.
No,
And if
embrace
you
it.
get but we
Yeah.
understand that we're not the problem. It's those who are afraid and living in fear, and it will shut you down and keep
Mhm.
like Cuomo said this in the beginning of the pandemic on one of his press conferences. He said, "Panic minds can't think." And so that's what I took away from a lot of what keeps happening is when you're afraid and you're moving in fear, you're going to not be in a flow. And so there's a need to be able to say we can still curate and monetize when someone is coming in with something. That's the whole reason for an RFP. That's the whole reason for
Mhm.
critically having these meetings where we are discussing who's at the helm of it and then how it gets permitted in. But still, we're shooting ourselves in the foot because look at that building is sitting there decaying
Yes.
in the middle of a
Mm.
mecca of tourism, both local tourism as well as international tourism. Is such a waste. And then my other problem with this is we live in a digital era and proof positive we're on a virtual talk right now. Why, when there's something going on in a 10-block radius of wherever some tourist is coming to visit Harlem, is there not a digital screen at one of those kiosks that you can charge your phone, or on some digital screen at a train station where you can see something going on in another part of where you're standing? Because a lot of times our low attendance for things is just coming off of people don't know that it's going on. Why aren't we using the technology in a different way?
Yeah. I
And
mean, we have to
uh,
submit those things to what is it, Link NYC?
Yeah.
You know, you can
Mhm.
submit
Yeah, yeah.
your events. Yeah. So
So
that, I mean, that's just something people have to be made aware of, and maybe
yeah.
that's something that can be brought up at the community board meeting, like submit your how to submit your events there.
Mhm.
Mm. So folks, this has been a great lively conversation. Unfortunately, we have to wrap it up. But it,
No.
yes, but we'll be
I
getting
won't go.
we'll be
I
getting
won't go.
together over bagels soon. So
Uh-oh.
I
Hey,
have
wait,
one.
we can do it. We can do it at Bo's Bagels.
okay.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
I have
yeah.
one announcement. I'm doing a 2 artist show in East Harlem right now. Place called uh, JVS Project Space. Julio Valdez studio space store on the first floor.
Okay, where's it located?
It's 181 East 108. It's on my website.
Okay.
My website. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Is yeah, yeah, yeah. I wrote it down. TomoMoriArt.com. Yeah.
Okay. And you
Okay, awesome. So
Eh,
I want to, because my battery's gonna die. I
okay.
have to go next.
What's your parting shot? Tell us.
Well, I'm Misha. I'm at Irwin House Gallery in Detroit, irwinhousegallery.org, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. But I also curate for City College Center for the Arts, the Windows on Amsterdam Gallery. So I'm always looking for artists for that space and also for Bose on 116th Street. So
Mhm.
feel free to submit art for consideration for exhibition at either of those spaces and in Detroit. You can reach me at omomisha@gmail. Thank you. Thank you guys. Thank you for having
Excellent.
me. I'm honored.
Alethea, take us home.
Yes, I am doing my artist in residency called the AOA residency, Alethia's Original Artworks. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Alethia's Original Artworks. You can find my website, Alethia's Art. I put it in the chat. Um, and my artist residency, because of the pandemic and not having people come in, I will have cameras on while I'm working at the late hours so people can kind of chime in at different points. I'm using, I'll Make Me a World is one of the documentaries that I'm kind of anchoring in some of how I started my journey. And I'll be doing an exhibition sometime next year as a result of the work. So some of the works I'll take Adinkra symbols and Underground Railroad symbols and add my embellishment to it, as well as tell a visual story. And so that will start at the 27th of this month.
Excellent.
Also, the last thing was the performance, the live art I'm going to be doing at the gallery in Harlem. The date has been changed, so it'll be announced, and I'll send it to you guys so you can post.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. Night Watchman,
So,
take us home.
well, you've been listening to Soul Lounge Primetime with a great panel of artists. You can find us every Monday night, 7 p.m. We are live on WHCR 90.3 FM. 8 o'clock, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. If you follow us on those channels, please like, subscribe, and share, and support these artists. Support artists every day.
Yes, indeed. And if you don't watch out, someone can end up in the sunken place.
There you go.
Yep.
Thanks,
Take care,
everybody.
y'all.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
for
guys.
having us.
Soon.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.